So my name is Larry Allen, and I am presently chair of the Jefferson County Republican Election Integrity Committee. And we've been looking at this election integrity stuff for a while. So I'm just here to share some information. And so there's the famous election fraud curve from, I guess it was the 2020 election. Okay, and there's actually a neat little story behind this, which if I have time, I'll go back to in the end, but I won't concentrate on it now. So, election fraud, what are we talking about? So, the type of election fraud we're talking about, we are not talking about what I would consider, I don't want to say innocent election fraud, but you know, where the father gets the ballot for Susie in his house, and Susie's away at college, and he says, well, you know, Susie always votes Democrat, so I'll just fill it out and send it in and signs her name. That's election fraud, right? But that's not the type of election fraud we are talking about tonight, okay? We're talking about intentional, sophisticated, planned, computerized, nefarious election fraud. That's the kind of election fraud we're talking about, okay? So, it's a frustrating subject because if you are caught and if you are convicted, right? And so you're like, oh man, all this election fraud out there, like nobody is going to jail. Every once in a while you hear on the news, oh, somebody's caught in Dallas or somewhere, you know, and they get sentenced to a few months or whatever. But generally, it's pretty frustrating that way. But we think to ourselves as honest people, well, we'll discover this election fraud, right? And we'll just show the authorities or whoever. Then generally these people will agree to correct the problem, right? We're going to figure it out, show people, and then they'll agree to correct the problem. But unfortunately, that's not the case. You see, because the people who control the elections already know the elections are corrupt. So telling them that there's election fraud, you know, they're trying to hide it. We're trying to expose it. Okay, and so when you tell them there's election fraud, they already know that, right? So we assume there will be sort of the good guy and correct it, but that's just not the case, okay? And election fraud is complicated. You see, there are federal election laws, there are Colorado election laws, and there are Colorado election rules promulgated by the Secretary of State's office on top of the Colorado election laws. And so you sort of have to find your way through the weeds to try to figure out what you're doing if you really want to, like, okay, is this legal or not legal? Well, there's a lot of avenues you have to go down to sort of figure that out. So do we have election fraud? So I'll just show you a couple of slides here from around the country, not necessarily here from Colorado, but here's one. In Georgia, 19,000 ballots were counted from a single Zuckerberg drop box over one weekend. But surveillance shows that only 24 people visited that drop box. Okay, so that's an average of 791 ballots per person. Okay. Detroit resident brags on Facebook, I work for Wayne County, Michigan. I threw out every Trump ballot I saw, tens of thousands of them, and so did all of my coworkers. Okay, so he's proud. And you know, that's what's so interesting is that these folks that are intentionally trying to create election fraud, they're proud of it. Okay, that's what they're intending to do, and they broadcast it. Okay, Pennsylvania. Okay, well, Pennsylvania sent out 1,823,000 ballots. They got back 2,589,000 ballots. Oh, wait a minute, is that election fraud? Now remember, you think, well, that's in Pennsylvania. No, that impacts us, right? Because if Pennsylvania goes blue or red, right, that impacts our vote here. That basically puts our vote out of commission, so to speak. Okay, right here on the right side, voting machine company admits that somebody flipped the votes in their machines. Okay. Postal Service releases final report. The contract driver, Jesse Morgan, you probably remember this guy, vindicated. Report confirms he hauled a trailer of ballots from New York to Pennsylvania in late October 2020. So he basically was a whistleblower. He said, you know, my job as a postal worker in this specific night was I was delivering fraudulent ballots from New York to Pennsylvania to dump into their election, and he reported it, and they went after him. Instead of saying, hey, thanks for being a whistleblower and letting us know about this fraud, no, they went after him. But when they did the investigation, he was vindicated. So here's an interesting thing. So right on TV, you see the time here on this top slide, right? Top slide shows 11:08, where Trump has 1,690,000 votes in Pennsylvania. But 33 seconds later, they flipped the switch and they transferred 20,000 votes from Trump to Biden. Now Trump goes down to 1,670,000 and Biden goes from 1,252,000 to 1,272,000. Okay, so at the you know, just the touch of a button, those votes are flipped. James O'Keefe helped uncover a nationwide Democrat election rigging scheme that launders millions in donations through ghost donors. I'll go back to that later. That's a really interesting subject. So anyway, just to move on, right? We have our election. We have 133 million registered voters in the United States, 74 million for Trump, 81 million for Biden. That's 155 million. Now, just looking at that, do you think to yourself, well, how could we certify that election? How could it even happen? How would people be willing to certify that election, right? Bill Barr, there's a lot of not nice things to say about Bill Barr, but we'll move on. Chinese whistleblower has confirmed that as many as 5 million fake ballots were printed in communist China. What is China doing printing ballots, right? Shipped to North America to be used in the 2020 election. Okay, Democrats, I didn't put Democrats, that was whoever did this. Democrats colluding with foreign governments to overthrow the US government. Okay. Feds seize, on the right side, Feds seize 19,000 plus fake state driver licenses made in China. Again, there's China. Okay, so there you go. Fun stuff. There's nothing to see here in Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada. One hires 100 large. Okay, so anytime you go to expose election fraud, one side says, let's take a look at this. The other side comes in with 100 lawyers, right? So when you see one side, generally the Democrats, show up with their massive lawyer force, you say to yourself, what? Shouldn't everybody be on board with digging for the truth? You know, why is one side trying to stop the audit or stop whatever, okay? So, all right, now, so we're going to go to this thing called Act Blue, and this refers back to the slide I just showed quickly where money is funneled fraudulently through a system into a certain, to candidates. And so let me just explain. Does anybody know what the term smurfing means? Smurfing. Okay, way to go, brother. So let me just explain that quickly. So generally, each candidate for each office has a limit on what an individual can donate to that person, that candidate, per office. They're different for every office. Like you can donate more to a governor, a candidate for governor. You can donate a certain amount to county commissioner, okay, but they're all different. You know, one might be, well, 4,000, you know, for an individual. One might be 1,200 for an individual. So, but here's what smurfing is. You have a big pool of money, and one party wants to get some of this big pool of money to their candidate so that they can win the election. Because money wins elections, right? Let's just face it, money wins elections. So they want to overwhelm the system with money, and they sort of have to figure out some way to get the money from their big pot of money over to the candidate. But you know, the thing that stands in the way is that there are limits on what each individual can give. So if, let's just say, $1,000. So for this particular candidate, for this particular office, you know, you can only write $1,000. Well, that sort of roadblocks them wanting to push all this money over to this candidate. And so what smurfing is what they do, and Act Blue is the organization that's being investigated for this right now, is that they take money and they siphon it through individuals.
I hate to interrupt, but your speakers, do you have another speaker? If they're on the way from the fire department, they just called. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now who's that?
Okay.
Okay.
They're on their way. They're running late. She
Okay.
just wanted me. I'm sorry to interrupt,
Okay.
but
Nope,
yeah.
that's fine. So anyway, they want to get money from the pool of money over to the candidate. And so what they do is they take small bits of money, okay? It might be $50, it might be $100, and they will just run oodles of transactions through an individual over. So they'll take a voter and they'll say Mary Smith contributes $100 to whatever the candidate is, you know, Paul Rogers contributes $150, and you just have constant, I mean, thousands of transactions going under the wire. And how would you ever know it? People don't know it, okay? And like if somebody contributed to a candidate in my name, how would I ever know it? How would I ever know it, right? Would you know if somebody contributed, right? And people, they're going up, they started to investigate this. They're knocking on people's doors, and there are ladies that like, I cannot afford the electric bill, and they say, excuse me, did you contribute, you know, over $3,000 to what, and you know, $2,400 to Elizabeth Warren in Rhode Island, you know, not, and she's not even, and did you contribute? All these different candidates are getting money through this person without them even knowing, and that's what smurfing is, and they are getting oodles of money through the sort, I would call them underground pathways to these different candidates, and that's what's being investigated now. Okay. So here are a couple examples. One individual from New York, identified as RG, reportedly made an alarming $42,732 contributions totaling $806,000 from 2018 to 24. This is an average of 16 donations per day. Now, can you imagine that? That is just beyond anything you can imagine, right? From April 2019 to February 22, he made over 200 donations directly to Ruben Gallego, totaling at least $2,600. Upon further investigation, 204 additional contributions to Act Blue were earmarked for Gallego. Okay, does anybody believe that this individual made nearly 43,000 Federal Election Commission contributions since 2018? I mean, so you have this going on. Now let me see what we have here. Gateway Pundit was unable to reach the contributors on the list. However, the husband of one deceased individual from Colorado, identified below as AC, told us that AC passed away in March, and there's no way she made 5,000 plus contributions totaling $66,000. He further did not believe she made 75 donations totaling $1,582,000 to Arizona Senate candidate Ruben Gallego congressional campaign, while the last donation made from the individual was on March 2023. Strange patterns are seen with 4 separate contributions to Act Blue, et cetera, et cetera. So you can just see, I mean, it just forces you to just rethink this. Does anybody really realize that this is going on? You know, we think, oh, you know, everything's so fair and honest here. The individual from Colorado also, this is on the right side, reportedly made hundreds of small dollar donations to Elizabeth Warren. Now, this is a Colorado individual, and certainly you can make, I've made contributions to out-of-state candidates. You can do that, right? But when you just look at the amount of contributions being made, it just stretches the imagination. Okay, so there are a lot of sort of different categories of voter fraud. And we always hear is clean up the voter rolls. You know, there are dead people on our voter rolls. Yes, there are. Vulnerable voters. Now, vulnerable voters, for example, are people in nursing homes is a good example where there might be a person who is just not functioning cognitively, right? Okay, they're not sort of able to fill out ballots, and do they actually receive their ballots and take them to their room and fill them out and bring them back and get them into the mail? These individuals, my mother-in-law is in a senior care living center, and these people that work there know their residents, okay? They see the mail they get, they talk to them, they know if they're conservative or if they are liberal, okay? And so you might have, you know, some person at the facility and say, oh, Mary, you know, I'll take that ballot from you and drop that off for you, knowing that she's conservative, and you wonder, does that ballot ever get to the mail or the ballot box, right? So that's a vulnerable voter. Use of unguarded drop boxes. Do you need some water there? Oh, you have some, okay. Unguarded drop boxes. All our drop boxes in Colorado are supposedly video monitored. They are not well monitored. Some are, the cameras are sort of right there. Some, the camera is a football field away, it seems like, you know, and many are, I took pictures of many of our drop boxes, and the camera, let's say the drop box is here with a slot here, the camera's behind. So if I had a bunch of ballots, you could not tell, okay, even though it's video monitored, you know. And I've been to election headquarters, and they have the video monitoring up on the screen, and nobody's watching the screens. You know, it's just, they're there. So anyway, cleaning up addresses. Now this is an interesting thing. Supposedly, it's one thing about voters, okay? Are you an eligible voter? Like, are you an illegal voting or not? But there are some addresses where it is illegal to send a ballot to, okay? And so one of the things that they have started to do was examine the addresses. Why are these ballots going to this address? Because that's an illegal address to send a ballot to. And you'll start looking at addresses and you say, okay, why are we receiving back 20 ballots from this same address? Okay, because they all come in and they're listed. Why are we seeing? Well, it may be that the whole family lives at that address. That may be totally legitimate, but it deserves some attention, right? Or, you know, some facilities you have individual mailboxes. You know, some apartment buildings have very secure mail areas, and each person has an individual a mailbox. But some, you know, mail is delivered in some facilities, sort of, what would I say, fraternity style, where, you know, you come in and you dump the mail on the desk and everybody sorts through and gets their mail, okay? And I've been in apartment buildings and I've seen things, mail's laying all over the floor. So anyway, that's another area. Security ballots sent through the mail. Ballot chasing. It's legal in Colorado to ballot harvest 10 ballots per election. So for example, a person could collect 10 ballots from neighbors and bring them to the ballot box and put them in, 10 ballots in, that's good. 11 ballots, no, okay? 20 ballots, no, okay? But 10 ballots, legal in Colorado. USPS, this is a big concern. We lose chain of custody when anything goes through the mail. And I personally had a senior officer who's retired now, but a senior officer at USPS, you know, say, I gotta talk to you. And he said, I just want to tell you what has happened that I've seen happen in the post office. And so typically, I don't want to say typically, I would say potentially, you have ballots go out, and do they all hit legitimate addresses? and then some are undeliverable. We'll talk more about that. So these are all just different categories. The machines, of course, we know about that. You know, some of the voting machines, which is a big problem. And so much stuff has just come out just recently, literally within the past week or two. So maybe we'll have to touch on that. Okay, so let's go on. So we have 64 counties in Colorado, okay? But if you wanted to commit voter fraud in Colorado, some of the counties are very rural, okay? Very rural. I mean, you would not commit voter fraud in some of these very rural areas because there aren't that many votes there. There just are not that many votes there, right? And so let's just take a look here. Judicial Watch has released, well, this is just in general, Judicial Watch has released more information from a September 2020 study revealing that 353 U.S. counties had 1.8 million more registered voters than eligible voting age citizens, okay? And they listed those by state. Here's Colorado's list, okay? Of the 64 counties that Judicial Watch examined, 41 counties had more registered voters than eligible voting age citizens, okay? And so right off the bat, you know that ballots are going out that to people who are not registered, okay? So this is unbelievable. It's not like 3 counties. It's 41 of our 64 counties had this problem of more registered voters than eligible voting age citizens. Okay, here's from Laura Logan. The one thing that gives away a cheat is when you have more votes than registered voters. That's why they have to pad voter rolls in key districts. And what's interesting to me is Laura Logan doesn't live in Colorado, okay? But she highlights Colorado. Here we hear all the time, oh, the gold standard, right? No, but she, a national figure, highlights Colorado as one of the problem areas, right? And it's also why states like Colorado have automatic voter registration when you get your driver's licenses. So let me try to think this through with you here. So if you have more ballots going out than registered voters, okay, through dirty voter rolls or whatever, you potentially could get back more votes than registered voters, as happened in Pennsylvania, where we saw they sent out 1.8 million, they got back 2.5 million, right? That's pretty embarrassing. I mean, you see that on the news and you say, well, my goodness, how could that even happen? And so what do they have to do? They have to pump up the number of registered voters, okay? Because if they get too many ballots that come back and it's over the amount of registered voters, that's embarrassing. So they have to pump up the number of registered voters. So that's why you have one reason why they have, oh man, you can automatically register, and they just keep pumping up that number of registered voters we have so they can stay away from that embarrassment. Okay. Colorado, 64 counties. However, we were talking about the rural counties, right? The top 12 counties have 85% of the population. So if you were, I'm sorry, pointing? Oh, come on in, brother. Hey. So the top 12 counties in Colorado have 85% of the population. So if you were a nefarious person and you were going to try to commit voter fraud in Colorado, where would you go to commit it? You would go to where the votes are. Here we are, Jefferson County, 4th largest county in Colorado, all right? But you would go through it, and that's where we are seeing the voter fraud being reported. Here we have Tina Peters Mesa in here, okay, and we're going to talk about Arapahoe County later. And so that's where you're going to see them attack. They're going to go after the votes, okay? These are just some, you could have a problem where multiple people at the same address. You could have dead people on the voting rolls. Same name at multiple addresses, okay? So those are just things. So here, for example, is just one example, which I snapshotted off or screenshotted off. You know, you can go to different websites. Your voter information is, what do I say? Voter information is basically public record, okay? I covered up this guy's last name. I didn't have to, it's public information. But here we see, it's a little small, but here's a voter in Colorado, right? And he is registered down here, registration date down here, 8/27/21. He's registered in Colorado, right? Okay. However, now this guy's still on the voter roll. He is still on the voter roll for this election that we were talking about. But if you go to and look him up further, he actually in April of 23 moved to Clearwater, Florida. So he's now a resident in Clearwater, Florida, but he's still getting a ballot in Colorado. Okay?
I have a question on,
Yeah.
does the post office forward ballots?
No. No, if they can't deliver it.
How did he get his ballot?
Pardon?
How would he get his ballot?
You mean the Colorado ballot?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, theoretically he wouldn't, but that's not the only problem. Okay, so we'll go into that. Okay. Voters versus addresses, we talked about it a little bit. The process of identifying an ineligible voter is time consuming versus identifying an ineligible address. We talked about that, okay? To verify addresses, it's sort of easy to verify an address. You can go on Google Maps, okay? You get an address and you can put the address into Google Maps and you can see if it's a resident or not. Oh, that's a house. That looks legitimate to me. That's, oh my goodness, that's a parking lot. That doesn't look legitimate to me. And so I will just give you a personal experience. When I was investigating some addresses, I pulled up one and it was an address that looked not right to me. I go up and I think it was in Arvada, and I went up there and I looked at it, and it's a mailbox in front of a lot that was like where you park you know, your boats and stuff like that, okay? So there are like several boats parked there and there's one little house there, and luckily for me, the guy who lived in the house was out in the property cleaning up branches and stuff that were all over the property. So I went up to him and I said, listen, I'm investigating these different voter addresses. You know, do these people live here? And I had three or four names that were had registered with this particular address that I had gone to, which was this boat parking lot. And he said, oh yeah, I know those guys. And he said, they don't live here, but they get mail here, and I just throw it in a box, and every once in a while they'll come back and look through the box and get their mail. And I thought, oh, for goodness sakes, I said, really? But you know what? They changed the law in Colorado where actually that is legal. They have just wiped out the ability to actually get to any of these addresses and make them fraudulent addresses. So anyway, it just kept changing the laws here in Colorado to hurt the actual ability to ferret out these ineligible votes. Oh, this is just another example here. We'll move on from here. Just another example of basically the same thing. Vulnerable voters, basically the voting in these senior living centers goes through what is the activities director. I mean, to my understanding, pretty much every senior living center that I've been in, the activity director is the one who handles the voting for these vulnerable voters. And so that sort of puts a screen up. Are the activity directors honest? Are they not honest? You know, and so it's case by case basis, right? Okay. So, and then there's this thing called we're going to get to some more interesting stuff, right? There's a lot of problems going on here. So there's this thing called non-compos mentis. Legally, that's a legal term, basically means the man is not, or the person is not of sound mind. He is not legally allowed to fill out a ballot, okay? And most of these senior living centers have non-compos mentis individuals in them, which is unfortunately a part of life. However, look at this interesting thing. They did a study in Wisconsin. Over 70% of the Wisconsin nursing homes that were tested had turnout rates of 100%. And it says debunked, page 11. That's not that statement is debunked. There's a book titled Debunked, and that's on page 11, okay? So just to be clear on that. But now think of this. You could not get 100% turnout rate in any, we've never seen 100% turnout rate anywhere, right? If you get 70%, like you were really doing well, 72%, that's like they're celebrating that, you know, on the general electorate, the healthy people, all right? And now they want us to believe that 70% of the nursing homes that they tested in Wisconsin had a 100% turnout rate. Well, I mean, I'm just speculating, right? But to me, that says somebody's filling out those ballots and turning them in, right? The individuals in those nursing homes probably are not getting those ballots, or if they are, they don't care, and they say, well, we'll take care of that for you. Then they fill it out. That's my speculation, okay? Okay, ballots mailed versus registered voters. These 8 states and Washington, D.C. automatically mail ballots or applications to all eligible voters, excuse me, whether requested or not. And that's also from that book, Debunked. This is different from undeliverable ballots. Excuse me, I'm going to take another drink here. As I mentioned, we lose chain of custody when the ballots go through the postal system. So if you have a postman who is a rabid anti-Trump guy, and he's working in a Republican stronghold, he can take those ballots, and knowing 95% are going to a Republican, are going to be a Republican vote, he can't just throw those into the garbage. How would anybody know? And again, that's from the book, Debunked, page 34. Okay, in other words, we lose chain of custody. Did that person just not fill out their ballot? Just throw it away? It didn't come back to the election office, right? And we've had examples of that. So we'll go on. Okay, now Jefferson County. Jefferson County has 45,000 plus inactive voters as of August 2023 when I made this slide. Okay? 45,000 inactive voters. All right. Of that breakdown, 35,000 were undeliverable ballots. Okay, 35,000 undeliverable ballots. So what happens to an undeliverable ballot? It comes back to the post office, right? And it sits in boxes at the post office until the election office picks it up. Okay, and so that is if, this is speculation now, but if undeliverable ballots are sitting at the post office and there are nefarious people in the post office, could some of those ballots go missing and get voted? In other words, if they take them and they vote them, that could happen, right? Now there are some safeguards there, but let's move on here. Okay, so 35,000 undeliverable ballots collected at the post office, chain of custody lost, ballots go missing. Now here's the interesting thing. Charge to the county does not match. So the post office actually charges dollars for returned ballots. Okay, so let's say the post office gets back, theoretically, 30,000 undeliverable ballots. They come back to the post office. Now they theoretically will deliver them back to the election office and send them a bill of whatever it is, 87 cents per ballot, to deliver them back to the election office, okay? And they send them that bill. So the election office gets a bill for 30,000 undeliverable ballots. But when they actually count the ballots, there's not 30,000 ballots that they got back. They may have only got back 28,000 or 26,000 ballots. But they were being charged for 30,000 undeliverable ballots, okay? This is happening in multiple places in the country. And so there's this mismatch. And this was not that big of a deal to the election offices until people started to add up the numbers. And they're saying, hey, you're charging us for 30,000 undeliverable ballots that you delivered back to us, but you only actually delivered 26,000. So when you add that up, that's a lot of money, right? And they're under economic pressure like every place, all right? So they started to pay attention to the numbers, and all of a sudden their eyes opened, not because of the ballots, missing ballots, but because of the bill that they're figuring they're being overcharged, okay? So, anyway, all right. Signature verification. So, signature verification theoretically is a backstop to if a fraudulent ballot somebody picks up a ballot and votes it for somebody else, okay? The thinking is typically the signatures will not match, all right? So the ballot comes back to the election office. The ballot is still in the envelope. The signature is on the envelope, okay? That goes through the Agilis machine. Now, just for your understanding, they set the Agilis machine to a sensitivity. I think it can go up to like 32 points of reference. Pop, 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 pop. You know how the computers do it. They try to recognize, and they try to match it to the signature that the county has on file for that voter. So here comes the ballot. The machine takes a picture of that ballot. Does it match the one they have on record? If it matches pretty well, then it goes through. Okay, now, I'm going from memory here, but I believe in Jefferson County, they have the machine set to 18 points of reference, checkpoints, okay? I've read where different counties have turned it to 0. They just want to let them all go through, okay? They could turn it to 2, they could turn it up to 32, okay? But the point is that when you hear the news and they say, oh, that's been cleared by the machine, okay, that signature has been verified. Well, it depends on the sensitivity that they set the machine to. If they set it down to 4 or 8, a lot of unverified signatures are going to be able to get through, okay? But I think Jefferson County, I'm going from memory, but I think they set it to 18, and so it's sort of right in the middle there, okay? Now,
Question?
yeah.
If I made do the more points set on it slow the machine down any or not?
I don't know the answer to that question. I do not answer the question. The machine runs really fast. those ballots go through there. Oh, and here's, just so you know, 65% of the ballots their signatures are accepted by the machine, okay? So when we say signature verified in Jefferson County, 65% of the signatures are accepted by the machine. The other 35% go to the signature verification teams that human eyes view, okay? And so then they take a look at them. Now here's the problem we're running into in today's world, okay? What happens at the signature verification station in the election office is the signature verification person at level 1 hits a button and 2 signatures will pop up. It will be the signature on the ballot and the signature that is on record at the county. Okay, now at this point, remember, the ballot is still inside the envelope. They have not separated that out yet. Okay, so they have these 2 signatures. The person looks at it. Now this is the 35% that the machine has rejected. So those 2 images show up, and the person, whether it's a Republican or Democrat or an affiliate, they look at it, make a decision. Yeah, really that does look okay. We're going to let that one through. Okay, or no, that really does not look so good. we're gonna send that on to level 2 signature verification team, okay? So, you take the ones that go through, go through. The ones that are sent to level 2, now you have a bipartisan team, okay? Now you have a Democrat and Republican, or a Democrat non-affiliate and a Republican non-affiliate. You have 2 people now looking at the same screen. Am I going over time here, brother? I see you looking at your watch. Are we okay? Time-wise? Okay. So you have 2 people looking at the screen. Come up, now it shows that same 2 images. Okay, this is the ballot image. This is the image that they have at the county on record. Okay, look at it. Now both people are looking at it. And they have a little bit of a conversation. And it looks okay to me, but look at that L. That L is not the same, okay. So they hit another button, and it brings up the list of signatures, all the signatures that individual, that the county has for that individual. Okay, so now a whole list of signatures come up. Now you scroll down and you say, oh, look at number 8 here. That looks exactly like the signature on the ballot. He signed, that's okay. Let that go through. But then they can't find, some you just can't find a signature that matches, okay? And so now what do? Now you hit another button. And that button brings up all the signatures for that address. Okay, so now, if Susie's living at a particular address and they can't match it, now they hit a button and all the signatures for that address come up. Now mom's signature comes up, dad's signature comes up, brother's signature comes up. And all of a sudden, whoa, there it is. That's dad's signature. He signed that ballot, So now they send it on to a higher level, which they look at legally, okay? So there are those backstops, okay? But the problem in today's world is so many signatures are on these electronic keypads. You guys have signed those things, right? Does your electronic keypad signature look anything like your real signature? No. And so when they hit that button and like 25 signatures come up, you're like, yeah, wow, and okay, well, 3 are like real signatures. I mean, I scribble, I just want to get out of the store, and so I'm like Zoom, okay? And it's really, we probably shouldn't do that, but everybody does it, let's just face it. Okay, moving on, what do we have here? Okay, so what is this little gizmo here? Okay, so are there markings on the ballots that could identify to the tabulator something on the ballot, okay? And so this is actually a microscope that you can set up to a high resolution, and then the image is on your phone, you can look at it, and you can move this around, just sort of scan it, is there anything here? And the fear is there something that the human eye cannot see, right? That maybe but it's geared so that the tabulator can see, all right? And so I'm gonna show you a picture here now. Do you see these yellow dots here? That's what we're talking about, okay? So we found this on not a real ballot, but a test ballot, okay? And these dots, a computer whiz told me there's a name for them. There's a name for them. He goes, oh yeah, that's blah, 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 But those are markings that the tabulator potentially could pick up and say, we want you to vote this way for this ballot, Mr. Tabulator Machine, okay? So we did run that microscope over the ballots that we got personally. On the election, we didn't find any of those markings, okay? But just to let you know, those type of things are out there. Shifted votes, okay. So we saw an example of the shifted votes where, in the Trump election, where he went from 1,690,000 to 1,670,000, and boom, that is an example of a shifted vote, okay? But that's sort of obvious, okay? But they found also examples of, fractional voting. So what is fractional voting? Okay, so here's what happened. Here's what they found. They add up all the votes, and they say, okay, Jim Jones got 3,258 and a quarter votes. And Mary Smith got 5,780 and 3/4 votes, okay? And for a long time, nobody was paying attention to that. But when you think of it, I mean, votes are just whole numbers, right? How does that happen? So what they were finding was happening, and this is not necessarily in Jefferson County, but what they found was happening were your ballot goes through, a person's ballot goes through, and people look up, hey, did they, you get a little message, congratulations, you voted, and you're like, hey, great, it counted my vote. But here's the problem. What it did was, the machine was set to split the vote. So your ballot goes through, you look up your ballot at Jefferson County, whatever, and I'm not saying this happened in Jefferson County, but you look up your ballot, a person looks up their ballot, and what happens? Yeah, your ballot was counted, and you're like, great, I voted. But it took your ballot and it allocated 25% of a vote to candidate A and 75% of your vote to candidate B. To you, it still looks like you voted. But all of a sudden, they add them all up, and if the total number comes out to an even number, nobody can tell, right? But then they started to notice these fractions. They said, why is that happening? And then they found out that they had machines that were splitting votes and allocating percentages, higher percentages to one candidate than another. Okay, so that was a problem. Hopefully they have corrected that. Decryption keys found in the voting machines. Yes. There's some really interesting stuff coming up, so I sort of want to get through something. Break it. Libertarian Party sues Colorado Secretary of State Gina Griswold over the BIOS password scandal. Is everybody aware of the BIOS password scandal? Mm-hmm. Okay, so, but for those who aren't, of course we had Tina, who was put in jail for what she was put in jail for. However, our wonderful Secretary of State left passwords open to the public for 63 of the 64 counties. Active passwords for 63 of the 64 counties. Active passwords, okay? To my understanding. And when somebody brought it to her attention, whether she knew about it or not, did she know about it or did she not know about it? We don't know that. But assuming she did not know about it, when somebody brought it to her attention, she still did not alert the individual county election individuals. She didn't tell them so that they could bang, hit the button, and we gotta shut this system down right now because somebody could be in. So we have absolutely no idea during this time period if any nefarious organization went in and changed passwords to give themselves backdoors into our operating systems, okay, into our voting machines. No idea. Did it happen at all? Did it happen on everyone? We just don't know. But the problem is, of course, there was no consequence to Gina Griswold on this. Okay. Peter Berniger, great election integrity guy. And again, I just have to point out here, guys, we keep hearing gold standard, gold standard, gold standard, but these guys that are examining election fraud throughout the country, they keep pointing back to Colorado. Colorado's a problem. We keep hearing that. Now here's Peter Berniger, okay, who's, I think Peter is housed in Wisconsin. Anyway, more outsiders found, this is Peter Berniger's post, more outsiders found in the Dominion voting system in Colorado. Be sitting down. I previously reported how Dominion software programmers from Belgrade, Serbia, okay, so we're going to hear some more about that before the night's out. Remember that. Now, what are our elections doing in Belgrade, Serbia? Right? I mean, can you even conceive of that, right? Okay. I previously reported how Dominion software programmers from Belgrade, Serbia entered Dominion voting systems in Colorado, okay, you with me guys? Via the internet. Okay, our machines are not supposed to be connected to the internet. I saw it firsthand in the election management system. I further supported the announcement by Dominion's own, I further supported the announcement by Dominion's own emails. Oh, goodness. Emails from the Michigan Sheriff. Okay, get rid of that. Anyway, we'll go down to where it says breaking. Breaking. In a hidden and separate folder in the Dominion EMS, it shows who else was found accessing the Dominion voting systems, the U.S. Army of Fort wherever in Arizona. So the point is, people are getting into our system through the machine, and there are people in there that should not be there. Okay, now it's going to get a little deeper, guys. Put on your safety belt. Okay, so Patrick Byrne is an election investigator also, but he's also apparently a very wealthy individual, and he is funding personally a lot of these investigations into election fraud, okay? And the guy is really, in my opinion, a hero, because this stuff would not be found out. So here we go. Patrick Byrne revealed in Smartmatic's original systems were built around an office in Belgrade, Serbia. Okay, there it is again, all right? Nearly 20 years ago. From there, results could be changed remotely after all the ballot stuffing and local fraud was happening. So basically, we've got levels of election fraud here. We've got the sort of the individual stuff, right? And so we've got the voter rolls that aren't clean. And we've got the problem with the Postal Service, okay? We've got people who are just, they're stuffing ballot boxes, they're stuffing votes, right? Fraudulent votes. People dead on the voting rolls, okay? So all that sort of local stuff, and if they can manage to get their candidate over the goal line, then they don't have to worry about it from Serbia. But the Serbia, that's their ace in the hole, okay? They can hit the button from Belgrade, Serbia to get their guy out. If their guy's not winning at 11:30 at night, bang, they're hitting the switch from Belgrade, Serbia, okay? All right. It is their ace in the hole, second paragraph. Patrick Byrne said, if their candidate still does not win, they flip the switch from Serbia. General Michael Flynn was told directly by insiders in Europe who admitted we have been manipulating elections for 20 years in 72 nations. Yippee. Okay. Here's another post by Peter Berger. Colorado voter list run through our Titan system. Okay, now these are just things he found, okay, in Colorado, not necessarily Jefferson County, but in Colorado. 13,000 addresses don't match. 109,000 apartment or suite numbers don't match. 95,000 invalid addresses registered to a post office, 44. Moved or left no forwarding address, 2,700. 27,000 moved permanently out of state, okay. Or some moved to a new county, 55,000. So the point I'm making here, guys, is if you look at our elections on election night, these elections are tight. I mean, some candidates are winning by 75 or 150 votes, right? And we've got 300,000 ballots with problems, various problems, but nevertheless, some of these elections are won by 75, 80, 100 votes, and we've got 300,000 ballots with problems. How can we have any confidence in our elections? Okay, here in Colorado. Now that's a Colorado post, okay? All right. On May 12th, the Justice Department asked Colorado Secretary of State to turn over all records relating to the 2024 federal election, as well as preserve any records that remain from 2020 elections. So, going from memory now, but the rule in Colorado is that election records must be preserved for 25 months. And I think federally for 22, or else it's vice versa, okay? But 22 or 25 months, okay. But the interesting thing is here, people are looking at Colorado now, because they know there are problems here, okay? They say, this is the first step to a lawsuit. preserve your records. That's what if they're gonna sue somebody, if they're gonna sue a senator or whatever, the first letter they send to them is, preserve your records. That, if you get one of those letters, that's not a happy day. Okay? So in any event, preserve, because they know something's coming up. We're looking at you now, okay? But the good thing is people know there's a problem in Colorado, and they're taking a quick look at it. But what's great to me is that they said, and from the 2020 election. That's the Tina Peters election, right? Okay, so here we go. All right, okay, so this is a different organization. This is Unite for Freedom. Unite for Freedom has also sued Colorado. You with me? So it's not just like one little outlier guy suing Colorado, right? Here now is Unite for Freedom, and they are suing Colorado, okay? And they say in Colorado's 2024 election, 44,000 people voted, get this, before they were registered. I don't know how they figured that out. In Colorado 2022 election, 58,000 people voted before they were registered. So that's their post, not mine. I can't figure out that happened. And they don't even know how that happened either, but according to the records that they examined. Okay, so here comes maybe the most important, interesting thing of the night. So, Dr. Ed Solomon is involved in a voter fraud case in Nevada, okay? He found nefarious cast vote record in Nevada. So he said, I'm going to search around the rest of the county, or rest of the country, to see if I can find something sort of the same, that looks the same as this thing I found in Nevada. So he's searching around, and he happens across the Arapahoe County cast vote record. So what did he find in Arapahoe County? It's right down the road from us, folks, right? And remember, if you're going to find election fraud, where are you going to go? Rural county or a high population county? You're going to go to a high population county, right? Okay, so the issue that they were examining was the Gallagher Amendment on the ballot, and it's what they refer to as a partisan issue. In other words, you would expect Republicans and Democrats to vote very differently. The Gallagher Amendment said if this passes, this allows the counties to raise your property taxes, which it did pass. Have you guys been getting higher property taxes lately, right? Yeah, that's because of this. Okay, so the Gallagher Amendment. Now you would expect the Republicans to say, I don't want you to tax me anymore. The Democrats are like, hey, we're really happy if you guys pay more taxes, so we're going to vote for that, okay? So they looked at the El Paso cast vote record for the Gallagher Amendment. You with me? It looks normal. This is El Paso County, all right? This tracks the no votes on the Gallagher Amendments, okay? Republicans are like, whoa, we really vote a high percentage no because we do not want this to pass. The Republicans' no votes were, we're sort of happy if you guys pay more taxes. So there's not as many no votes from the Democrat side. And so that's normal, but that's what they would expect, and that's normal looking, and it's like, all good, right? However, when Dr. Solomon looked at Arapahoe County, what did he find? He found, if you can see, even the red and the blue, they're virtually in lockstep. Arapahoe County was wanting us to believe that the Republicans and the Democrats voted exactly alike on the Gallagher Amendment, which we know is conceptually would not be the case, okay? And this is what he found in Nevada, and he sees it matched here in Arapahoe County. So they're right on top of each other. But notice this, folks. It's not just like the total number of votes at the end of the election. What Arapahoe County was saying is, at every point in the election, at every day, at every hour, at every week, they voted exactly the same. I mean, it's beyond credulity, right? And so He looks at this, he said, bingo, this is exactly what I found in Nevada. We're going to look at this, okay? So, he enters this in evidence in his Nevada case. With me? So this is now evidence in Nevada case. All right. So he says, you know what? And he started to make phone calls, and he was like, hey, you know, I found this in Arapahoe County. The word started to get out, all right? But he's making calls to different people, saying, I just want people to understand what I found. So then he decides, you know what? I am going to show the public what I found in Arapahoe County. So he sets up some kind of a public demonstration, like a Zoom call type thing. And he said, okay, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to bring up the Arapahoe County cast vote record. And so he goes to do that, and what does he find? He finds, now it looks normal. It looks just like that El Paso County record, cast vote record, right? And I was like, what? And somebody had changed the cast vote record. Somebody had changed the cast vote record to make it look normal. Apparent violations of federal and criminal laws, no kidding. But here's the important thing. That original cast vote record was posted, canvassed, audited, and certified in 2020. That original cast vote record was certified in 2020. What does certification mean in this state? Well, you can make your guess. Okay. Dr. Solomon found 2 ballot measures in 2 separate counties in 2 different states that displayed the same impossible arrangement of votes, and according to this article, which could only be explained by fraud. Again, not my words, but this is what's being reported. Okay, now this is in Colorado, right, guys? Okay. A huge number of votes throughout the altered cast vote record were reordered to give them an appearance that they were not natural and not manipulated. Okay. I'm going to soften this statement a little bit. I did not make it a statement. Gateway Pundit article, May 21, 2025. The article says it means that Arapahoe County election officials have software at their disposal that allows them to shuffle and reorder votes to make a fraudulent election look more natural. I would soften that a bit by saying, because I'm not sure, I know that the election people that work at Jefferson County, they are so proud of their work. They really want to produce fair elections. You know, I will give our county election officials that. They really are on trying to do a really good, fair job, and they work hard at it, okay? So it may not be that the Arapahoe County election official, there may be some other way that somebody can get into the machine. Somebody somewhere is how I would put it. Somebody somewhere had the ability to change some things in that cast vote record, okay? And Mark Cook, who's another investigator, if I have the right guy here. Yeah, Mark Cook, Patriot Mark Cook. Okay.
How much time do we have in here?
You okay?
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I'll try. Yeah, this is the last thing anyway. Okay? So, to change all that, they did not just have to make a few changes. They had to make a lot of changes to that cast vote record. Mark Cook said a total of 15 million plus changes had to occur on those ballots in order for them to make that thing look normal. Okay, so Arapahoe County, the Arapahoe County clerk and recorder is supposed to be just the clerk and recorder, okay? The Arapahoe County, it's not the clerk and shuffler, right? It's not the clerk and manipulator, it's the clerk and recorder. That's all they're supposed to do. But more importantly, here's the important thing, folks. They're not supposed to be able to do anything. Do you understand that? They're not supposed to be able to change votes. They're only supposed to be able to record votes. Okay. Zoom here. Okay. They looked at the Jefferson County, the people who examined this looked at Jefferson County and said Jefferson County looked the same way. Okay, here's Unite for Freedom again. This is some problems they found in Jefferson County. 19,000 plus with no social security number, 16,000 plus invalid addresses. There you go. State of Colorado, same problem. Okay, I think we reached the end of it here. Yeah, okay. So there's been, just in the last couple of weeks, guys, the Serbia thing has hit the news again, okay? You're going to be hearing something more about it. Watch your news. And when I say watch your news, if you haven't heard about this, expand your news, where you're getting your news, okay? I mean, this is not on CNN. This is not on the local newspaper. This is not on our local newscasts, okay? Expand your news, where you get your news from, okay? So, Patrick Byrne, he posts, I won't bring it up because we're under time pressure here, he reposts this Serbia thing. Basically says that the Smartmatic, Dominion, whatever the cabal is, they've got these huge servers in Serbia. They control things from there when they need to. Okay, now, Ralph Paluzzo, if you want to look at a website, this Patrick Byrne thing is about 6 or 7 minutes long, okay? But if you want to listen to something that explains it really well, look up Ralph Paluzzo, author. He has just written a book. Don't forget about the duck. Well, that's where I got it from. Yeah, DuckDuckGo. So in any event, he put a website up. It's about 45 minutes long, and he explains it all. And he explains it how the whole thing is connected from its inception in Venezuela to the servers in Serbia. It's really, I just listened to this today. It's well worth listening, okay? And I won't go into Mesa County because we're all sort of heard about Mesa County, but I'll just bring this up here. If you go to rumble.com, okay, I'll just bring it up a second. Hopefully, nope, won't go. I guess I'm not connected to the internet here, so. But if you go to rumble.com and it breaks down that Mesa report by Sean Smith, who is another investigator. And he explains point by point what they found in Mesa County. Whether or not Tina should be in prison is one thing. It's what they found. Okay, so that's the other thing. I'm done. Sorry for being long. I just want you guys to know that there are big problems in Colorado. Okay? And if you're in a conversation with somebody and they say, oh, Colorado gold standard, just make sure you say to them, we're not so sure about that, right? Okay. God bless you guys.
Can you take a couple questions?
Yeah, if anybody has questions, sure. Yeah.
So why did Tucker Carlson and all get into trouble for saying there was fraud in the election? Why didn't they come up with this evidence?
Well, the evidence has been ongoing. You know, a lot of this evidence is fairly recent, okay? But you can't, I don't know what Tucker Carlson said, okay? And I don't know what he was basing his statement on. So they are going to lawfare anybody who questions the election because they can't allow.
They went after Dominion.
Oh, he went after Dominion?
Yeah, a whole bunch of people went after Dominion.
And that's their defense, that they're going to sue people. They're going to sue people to scare them from saying anything, you know. So I guess I just would say I think I believe in my heart the bubble is about to burst. Okay, there's been a finger in the dike for a long time, but there's just too much coming out. And recently, these two whistleblowers from Venezuela, one from the CIA, one from Venezuela, gave sworn testimony, I mean, just like a week ago, okay? And so this is all brand new stuff, okay? And they're putting it all together. It's slow to come up, but it sounds like they're working on it.
President Trump signed an executive order a month or two ago, but it went into effect on September the 21st. And it says basically that any electronic voting machine has to meet the Election Assistance Commission's 2.0 standards. And according to the analysis I've seen, none of them do.
Correct. Yeah, that's my understanding.
According to the order, that would mean none of the electronic machines that are currently out are going to be eligible to be used in a federal election.
That's my understanding also.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to my understanding, I don't believe any of our machines were certified for 2020 either, and so. Are those results certifiable? Any other questions? No. Anyway, I hope I shared stuff with you. This stuff is just stuff I dug up. It's not my opinion, okay? I didn't generate this stuff. I took it off of different posts, okay? But you can see some of the problems other people are saying that we have here in Colorado. So.
And you expect us to sleep tonight?
But, we keep working at it, and I think the fact that our present administration is examining it is good news for us.
Thank you, Alan.
All right.